Geocachomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Well, welcome. We're so thankful to have you here listening, watching, however you're consuming this episode of the GeoGearHeads. By the way, this is episode 164. Can you believe we've already reached 164 episodes? Now, I myself am the bad cop, and I'm here with Daryl W4. And Daryl, what are we going to talk about tonight?
Well, tonight we're really excited to have Jennifer back on of Team AJK, or what was that, Team Magic that we used last time?
Tea Magic. It's a drink.
Tea Magic. Ooh. Actually, you know what? That sounds like a cool new gadget I have to go out and buy.
Now, for only $19.95, you can have Tea Magic. Are you tired of making tea the old-fashioned way? Sorry, I can go on.
Well, I think this is something we might need to do on Kickstarter.
Oh, I like it.
Anyway.
We have to have more than a name.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We actually have to have a prototype now, don't we?
Kinda.
I know. Tea Magic, we can have one of those dunking birds with the tea bag. You can find those anywhere. We just have to go out, buy them, and repackage them and put it on Kickstarter.
And counterweight them properly for the wet tea bag. But after that, we got it made.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so yes, Jennifer also writes a wonderful blog. And before we go any further, Jennifer, why don't you tell us all about that blog?
That is the Geocaching Puzzle of the Day blog, and I basically just feature a different puzzle from anywhere around the world that I have enjoyed and I think other people might enjoy seeing. It's a fun place to test your puzzle skills and maybe pick up some new ideas if you're a puzzle maker. And I have all different difficulty levels, not necessarily all hard ones. The Friday ones tend to be pretty hard. Weekends are usually not as hard, but lots of fun ones out there. And if anybody's got any they've either solved or written that they think might benefit from a wider audience, feel free to send it to me and I'll see about posting it.
Excellent. Of course, you've been on the show many times before, which is what prompted this episode, where we had a whole pile of questions during the last time we had you on. So we decided to do an entire show just on Q&A. So we actually did that as our question of the week. So question 164, we asked people to write in with their questions for a chance to win. So of all of those people, we had to draw one as the winner. And Jennifer, who was it that actually got the lucky prize this time?
That winner is Astronaut.
So congratulations. He actually picked the 200 Finds Geo Achievement Set from coinsandpins.com. So thank you again, coinsandpins.com, Astronaut, and everyone who actually wrote in. Well, let's actually kick off with one of those questions from... And I apologize. I think it's T. Jarrett, but maybe it's T.J. Arid. But he asked, or she asked, I've been a geocaching member for several years, but I've not done much as I'm getting back into it. My question is, exactly what is a puzzle cache?
Well, that's a good question, and you can't always just tell without looking what type of unknown or mystery cache that little blue question mark is indicating. It could be a challenge cache, it could be a night cache, it could be a cache with a physical box container. Those all fall in the same category. So a true puzzle cache is going to mean that in order to know where to go look for the cache, you've got to solve a puzzle to get the coordinates. So not only do you have to hunt to find the cache, but you've got to do some hunting to figure out where you need to go. And puzzle lovers enjoy that extra level of concealment for the cache hides. Some of the puzzles are going to require going to the location at the posted coordinates and getting some information that you're going to use there to get the cache coordinates. But most of the ones that people really struggle with are ones that we call the solve at your desk style, where you're expected to do some work from home. You get your solution and then you've got to be sure to update your coordinates from the posted coordinates into your GPS before you go out caching so that you look in the right spot. And the puzzles can really be about anything under the sun, which is why people can struggle with them sometimes. So practice really helps, and that's what I'm all about encouraging people to do with my blog.
Nice. Now, last week we had a guest on, and he gave the tip, and it's a really good one. Look at the name of the geocache. Sometimes the hint on how to solve the puzzle is simply in the name. So don't overlook those
Yep,
obvious
that was a good one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, we have another question, and this one is really from a form of royalty because he's the winner of the show, of the prize of the show. So Astronaut says, a cache listed at the coordinates, but with a challenge or logging requirements, should it be a puzzle cache?
Well, I wouldn't call it a puzzle cache per se, but yes, it does fall into that same category that we call unknown, or the mystery category with the blue question mark. People have been suggesting for a long time that Groundspeak actually have a separate category for actual puzzles, but it hasn't really gone anywhere. So I would just say if you're creating a cache and you're not sure which category it really fits in, to just ask your reviewer and they'll point you in the right direction.
Nice.
Well, the next question is one that I think many people have wondered. A. Demshar wrote, is it considered bad etiquette to log a find on a puzzle you didn't solve? I have caught flack from a cache owner after finding a puzzle cache with a friend. They did all the solving, I just rode along.
Well, this is one of those questions that people have debated, I think, endlessly in the forums, and there's lots and lots of different opinions. I will give you my opinion. I think it's totally up to the individual cacher as to whether they want to log a find or post a note for a puzzle cache that they've signed the log for but not actually solved themselves. I've cached with some other puzzlers who will just post a note and then go home, and they might later change the note to a find after they have gotten through the puzzle on their own. That's what I would do. But on the other hand, my main caching partner is not a puzzler and makes no claim to be, but she goes with me on these amazing puzzle runs where we'll do nothing but puzzles. We traveled all the way to Florida together on a mostly puzzle run, and she certainly logged those finds. You know, her participation is part of what enables me to get the finds, especially in some of the tougher terrains where I wouldn't go by myself. So, you know, I don't really see that there should be any problem with her logging them. I absolutely understand why some cache owners get frustrated when people get the coordinates from their friends or they do other things to, you know, circumvent the puzzle. But I would really encourage them to try to just let it go. You know, it's a game. It's not worth really getting upset over. And I'm sorry that this questioner had a bad experience. I hope it won't turn them off of maybe trying to learn to do with your friends, even when they want to do puzzle caches.
Yeah, I tend to do a lot of the runs with groups of people, and I love going out and finding the puzzles with them. Sometimes I try to go back and solve it, sometimes I don't, but it depends a lot on the quality of the puzzle, because there are a lot of puzzles that are just kind of, you know, it's a puzzle for the sake of a puzzle.
But is there a puzzle
yeah,
if it's
a Sudoku or something like that? Well, yeah, if there's a Sudoku or something like that you know you could solve, you know, I can see not maybe necessarily taking the time when you know that you could solve it, but I still probably would.
Well, it also depends on the quantity.
That's true.
And the available time, which, you know, lately I have almost none of.
Since I am the bad cop, let me go ahead and say that what about a cache that you've gone out and found, just a traditional cache, and I say found, you were with somebody who found the cache, you signed the log. You know what? You didn't actually find it. But because you were there, you eliminated some of the hiding spots. When I'm out caching with someone, they'll head right where the GPS is, and I'll start looking around going, well, I think I would hide it over here or over here. I'm not going to go look in the exact same spot. So while I didn't actually find it, I did eliminate some of those possibilities of where it could be. I think that's just as good as a find. So...
Well, Wet Coaster actually made an interesting comment. If I stumble along and find a cache I wasn't looking for, I'll log it. It doesn't matter whether it was a regular or a puzzle or whatever. And that is pretty interesting because I have run into that a few times where I'll stumble across a puzzle cache. I found a puzzle cache once that was a archived puzzle cache because the cache owner thought it was missing.
He forgot how to solve his own puzzle?
No, someone had moved the container on him, so he just archived it and put a new cache out, and we found it on the way back from that new cache. So he told us, oh, go ahead and log it.
I was just out a couple of weeks ago walking through a park and looked at it and go, there's a cache hidden underneath that tree. Look at that. And I went up to it, and I didn't recognize the name of the cache. It had been a multi-cache that I had found, and this was the final. But the logbook had changed since I signed it last, and I looked at it and go, well, I know where it is. I'm not going to sign it. I'm going to go back and look, and sure enough, I had already found it. But, I just was walking around, found a cache, and it was the final of a multi-cache. Does that count?
Well, Dano of Team Pugach replied also in the live Q&A that he feels the same way. I found caches that I don't know about when out looking for places to hide caches on the final of a multi that way.
Yeah.
Now, Limax also has a comment that I think is pretty good and really speaks to this, saying that he basically works as a team with another puzzler who, he's got one of the puzzle solvers who does one type of puzzle, and then he just rides along and finds the other types of puzzles. So it's kind of a team thing at that point.
Mm-hmm. I have no problem with that.
Nope, me neither.
But
and
speaking of
caching
Limax,
is largely a team activity, so
it really is.
That's fair game.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of Limax, he also sent in a question. He says, when looking at a puzzle cache description, what do you look for when trying to figure out what kind of puzzle it is? For example, a code, an image manipulation, a keyword?
Well, it can be tricky, especially if the cache owner has put a lot of stuff on the page on purpose to kind of obscure things. And oftentimes there could be more than one step. It might start out as an image puzzle, but then you'll find a code, and then you've got to have a keyword. So, it could be all three of them. I think some people are very methodical about how they approach a puzzle, and they always look for this first, and they always look at this next. I don't tend to be that methodical about it, but I would say, if the kind of puzzle isn't obvious, I would start by looking at everything on the page, including, like Chris just said, the title. Look at the source code and see if you see anything that's there. Follow any kind of links and investigate any images that are either on the page or in the background. Read the text really carefully for any kind of little nuggets of breadcrumbs they might have left as a trail for you to follow. And just remember that everything that the cache owner has put on the page is there for a reason. So keep looking. It can be kind of like just finding caches. Just like you can develop your geo sense, you can definitely get a better puzzle sense if you practice it.
Puzzle sense. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's kind of that practice makes perfect concept.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to a comment from Antaeus, and this kind of might help you build that puzzle sense. He actually says, question about puzzle caches. Have you guys seen the book How to Puzzle Cache by Cully Long? Do you know if Cully plans to make a second book with additional tips and tricks? Great resource, but I've actually run up against a few puzzle caches that the book hasn't helped me with. I really recommend this book, by the way.
I am really glad that somebody asked about this because I wanted to talk about it. It came out in December, just after I was on the last time, and I also recommend it as a really useful resource for both new and experienced puzzlers. I actually read the book cover to cover before publication and helped edit the text and test all of the puzzles that he included, and I think it's going to be extremely successful. It's available in a traditional binding through Amazon.com, or you can get a spiral bound version, which is the one that I have and like because you can lay it flat. He's got a website which is just howtopuzzlecache.com, all strung together with no spaces. There's not an e-reader version right now. A lot of people have asked about that, but I'm not sure if that's going to be able to work out. He's got so much graphics and whatnot in there. The conversion to an e-reader version was going to be kind of tricky. As far as another book, there's no book that's going to have everything that you need to know and have every single answer. And I think he honestly crammed in just about everything he could think of in the first one. So I'd be surprised if he's planning on a follow-up, but you could certainly message him and suggest it. His cacher name is Child of Atom, like the atoms that make up the elements in the periodic table. Child of Atom, all one word. Through geocaching.com, you can message him, and he's also got a Facebook page set up just for the book. So,
well, I'm disappointed it doesn't have every style of puzzle in it.
You'd be surprised how much is in there. It's a really, really good effort. I'm just amazed at the amount of work he put into it.
I'm going to have to look into that.
Well, one of the things that I found really handy in that book, and I don't have one yet, want to get one, but I don't have one yet, is there's like a flow chart in the back of the book that helps you kind of figure out and work through what is the right way to solve a particular puzzle.
Hmm. Especially, I think, for the cipher puzzles, that flowchart can be really useful. That was one of the questions you were asking last week is, how can you even tell what cipher to use? And hopefully the cache owners left you some clues, but if they haven't, then there's some things that you can do to sort of analyze the combinations of what letters and maybe numbers that you have in there, and try and follow the little flowchart to figure out, exactly what type of cipher you might have. You can certainly rule out a lot in a hurry, and then maybe focus on a few, cut the list down a little bit.
Nice. If they haven't left you any clues, shame on them.
We will have him on the show coming up. But meantime, Dano of Team Pugach actually on the live Q&A says he does have the book and enjoyed reading it, but he also puts a new puzzle on his Facebook page every Monday to solve, and the answer on Tuesday. Also Fridays he offers a resource website, so that's a great way to do it. Meanwhile, Dane Morgan actually says that he needs a Kindle version, and I agree. I want that on the Kindle version so it's with me everywhere I go.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but I know a lot of people would like that.
Yeah, I'm
you just
thinking
have to buy it and take a picture of each page on your phone so you can have it with you when you're out in the field trying to solve a puzzle.
Well, it is spiral bound. You could just pull the spiral binding and run it through one of those nice big sheet-fed scanners.
Ooh.
Turn it into a PDF.
That's almost like an ebook right there.
Yeah, not that we recommend pirating or anything.
Well, no, it's fine if you own it and you want it in another medium that's not available to you.
Yeah, you're carrying your backup copy with you as a PDF or whatever.
It's the same as making an MP3 of a CD.
Right.
Okay, enough of that. Enough of pirating tips for the day. Arr. Okay. Now, Jennifer, following up on last week's show, you had a couple of suggestions about cipher solving tools, and that's a tough combination of words for me to say.
A little tongue twister there.
Yeah.
Yes, I, not having the background with ciphers that the rat does, or the expertise in terms of writing a program myself to do the solving, I have a small stable of cipher solving tools that I use online. The most common one I've seen that I think for geocachers would find useful is one on a site called rumkin.com, RUMKIN, and I'll give all these links to you guys and you can put them in the show notes afterwards. But it's got most of the basic ciphers people are going to come across in a 2- or 3-star geocaching puzzle, like the ROT ciphers, Visionaire, @Bash, or Playfair. And the thing is, it's not going to solve the cipher for you if you don't know all the particulars, like what the keyword is, but it will at least allow you to try a bunch of different possibilities quickly instead of having to do everything on pencil and paper. There's another one with some more ciphers on a web page put out by a cipher guy named Bion, B-I-O-N. It's Bion's cipher solving page. There's also cipher solving apps out there. And for PC users, there's a program that's a downloadable one I really recommend called CryptoCrack. It's amazing. It can actually help you figure out what type of cipher it is, and it auto-solves a lot of them. Even if you don't know the keyword, a lot of times it can solve them. Some more successfully than others, but it's pretty amazing. So, it's not exhaustive, but it helps you understand the different possibilities. And I think the main thing, again, is just going to be practice, practice, practice. I've got some cipher training puzzles myself, if anybody's interested in looking them up. Any of my puzzles that have that ACA, American Cryptogram Association, in the title would be practice ones that I think you could learn from.
Very good. Now we actually have a question in the live Q&A about ciphers, and this comes from A. Demshar again. I have been trying to solve a Playfair cipher, but I don't know the password. Is this necessary? Is there any key to figuring out what the password is? By the way, this is my first attempt at a Playfair cipher.
Well, for your first attempt, it may be very difficult to do. The short answer is that it's possible if you have some idea what you think the words are in the plain text. This is what the rat was referring to last week when he was talking about a crib. That was the word he was using. If you know the word north is in there, or you know that it's going to say north 42, or something like that, you can kind of play around and hope you can find some combinations of in the cipher that would correspond to
we're having
those.
Problems with your audio breaking up.
Oops, sorry. Let's see.
Jennifer,
still
we're
there?
having some issues with your audio breaking up.
I can hear you. Can you not hear
maybe
me?
try muting the
I can
audio
hear
and
you, Jennifer.
See if we
You
can
can hear
get
me.
that to
Okay.
sync.
Daryl, can you not hear at all?
Oh.
Can you still hear me, Chris?
I can hear
Yes, I can.
you, but it is coming through a little bit choppy.
Well, sorry. Not sure if I should try and do anything or not. I'll stand by.
I think it might be on Daryl's end.
Okay.
Okay. Better, Daryl?
All right. Let's give that a shot and see if that works any better.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks,
So,
Jennifer.
again, going with the Playfair, I would try to go on one of those sites like the Rumpkin site and just play with a bunch of different passwords and see if I can do it that way. You're going to probably have to get a little bit more experienced with it before you'll be able to actually work it out using the crib. It's worth trying, but it's a little bit trickier process. So.
Interesting. Now, is something like that cipher crack, will that, or crypto crack, help to point you towards the fact that it's a Playfair cipher?
Yes, it will.
Okay. So
it does all kinds of statistical analysis using whatever's in there, and
Sure.
I honestly don't even know how all it works. It's kind of it's a little bit magical, but it's powerful.
I mean, I think a lot of this is based on the usage of letters in the English language. You know, we use a lot of A's and E's
Right.
in our words, very little, U's. So, by analyzing that, you can figure out, well, more than likely it is this type. Now, will that program solve it for you, or just point you to the type of cipher it is?
In a lot of ciphers, it'll actually solve it for you too. It doesn't even need the keyword. It'll test a jillion different things and
Sure.
pop out something.
Brute force it.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
All right, well, let's move on to a question from Scrapcat, and she wants to know, how does one-time pad work?
Well, a one-time pad is another type of cipher, and it's basically a rotation or a rot cipher on steroids, if you will. Every letter is going to be shifted or rotated a different number of spaces, and that number of spaces is going to be determined by a key that's not just a key word, but it's going to be a group of words, or random gibberish is the most secure way to do it. That's at least as long as the text that you're decrypting. If the text for the keypad is truly random and it's only ever used once, then that cipher is pretty much unbreakable, which is why it was popular. There's a good explanation of the process of encrypting or decrypting with a one-time pad on Wikipedia, and this is one of those ciphers that is on that Rumpkin site that I was talking about. And as far as using it in a geocaching puzzle, the trick is usually going to be to identify what the person has used as their text for that keypad. It might be the text of something well known, like the Gettysburg Address or whatever, or it could be actually some text that's written on the cache page itself. So the approach I usually take is play with different texts in that Rumpkin solver and see if it comes out. And the fun thing about this one is, again, like I was saying a minute ago, if you can figure out what the beginning of the plain text is going to be, you can actually type that in, and sometimes if you hit it right, the typing the plain text as the pad will actually give you, in terms of, it thinks the ciphertext, it'll give you the keypad itself. So you can sort of reverse engineer the beginning of the keypad by typing in what the beginning is that you think it's going to say, whether it's going to say north or 40 or 30, or depending on where you live. So the fact that the cipher is reversible that way, the key is going to give you the plain text, but the plain text will also give you the key. So that's another way you can sometimes kind of play with it and get something to come out.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I do when I'm working on this. I know it's going to be coordinates, or you hope it's going to be coordinates, let's put it that way. You don't know, is it going to be spelled out numbers or numbers on their own? But if you start that way and assume, you can make some big strides.
Mm-hmm.
So We have another question, this time from Tavia. What are some tips for creating a puzzle cache?
Well, I actually recently gave a whole talk about this, and I'm going to share the link with you for the PowerPoint for that. And just giving you a quick summary, though, I would say keep in mind that the goal is for people to have fun. You know, the puzzle should feel logical to the solver and not random. It shouldn't require, guesswork. If you're just starting out writing puzzles, I would suggest that you don't try to make the puzzle too hard. This is probably the biggest mistake I see for new puzzlers is they're really enthusiastic and they want to make this great puzzle, and it just turns out to be too hard. You know how it works, and if you think it's hard, and even knowing how it works, it's probably going to be a lot harder than you would expect for somebody else to figure out. So that's probably the biggest thing. You can figure those things out by having someone test your puzzle. It helps you avoid any ambiguities or mistakes, which nobody likes a puzzle that comes out with mistakes in it. That's bad. We've all done it, but you want to do everything you can to avoid that. And having somebody test it, you can avoid that. And they'll also maybe have some ways to suggest that you might tweak your design a little bit. And then the last thing I would suggest is to always consider adding a geochecker. That was something we talked about in my last talk with you guys. It's just that people really do appreciate having those geocheckers just to be sure that they're doing it right.
Yeah, and one of those geocheckers just got hacked, didn't they?
Yeah, that was the geocheck.org, unfortunately. The whole site was hacked, not just the cache coordinates, but people's passwords and everything. So I would encourage anybody that used their same password on that to change it elsewhere. I change it both places, actually. And, it's not like it's state secrets on there. I don't really care if somebody stole my coordinates, but the whole password thing I think is a little unsettling. So
right.
It was a real shame.
Well, if you're using one password for all your internet accounts, just go ahead and unplug your computer, take it back to the store. You shouldn't be using it. Sorry, that's a little rough, but you get the idea. I'm serious about this. Don't use the same password on every website.
Yep.
Okay, still more from Tavia. Most cachers prefer traditionals. What are the ways to promote a puzzle cache? And I can speak to this because I had a puzzle cache and a traditional out at the same time. Put them out at the same time. I had 10 finds on the traditional before I even got a log, or even a hey, this looks interesting on my puzzle cache. So it was a tough thing to do.
Yeah, it's true. So I think, people that put out puzzles, they sort of have to be aware of this. Your traditionals are always going to get more finds than puzzles, so be aware of that. Try not to be too disappointed. Hopefully the people that do take the time to do your puzzle will enjoy it, and that will make it worthwhile in the long run. A few people that really, really enjoy it versus, a larger number that just it's one of a million that they do. I would recommend making some fun and easy puzzles first, especially if you haven't put out puzzles in your area before. Putting out some fun and easy ones. I have a couple of my own, actually, if you want some recommendations of really, I have ones that like a 5-year-old can do. So those are fun, and people enjoy those. And, when people get to know your style and have fun with your puzzles, you build up a little bit of trust with them, and they're more willing to follow you into some deeper water, as it were, with the puzzles. You could also consider dropping some hints to your puzzles in your traditional caches. You could raffle away hints or raffle away coordinates at events that you go to. You might consider having a puzzle solving event to discuss tips or maybe work through some of your older puzzles and explain them. Or you could even launch a puzzle at the event, and people who come to the event learn how to work it. I think the biggest thing is just being willing to help people learn, being open to questions, and trying to give good small hints to people who ask you for them.
Some good tips in there. And we actually have a voicemail that was called in from someone looking to hide a cache.
This is Craig's Outside from Upland, California. I've got an idea for a puzzle based on a podcast, but I need a keyword to make it work. My question to Jennifer is this: how do you choose a good keyword or passphrase for a puzzle or cipher? For example, would the word Joshua make a good keyword, or would it be best to use something completely different?
I don't think there's any particular rule that I'm aware of as to choosing a keyword or passphrase. The trick is really going to be giving your solver some subtle clues as to what the keyword is going to be. Again, you really don't want it to be just a guessing game. I've seen a lot of folks, they'll use a word from the title of their cache or their geocaching name or something about the theme of the puzzle, or even sometimes the word keyword is the keyword. If somebody writes in their description, you'll need a very special passphrase to open this file, or you'll need luck and determination to decrypt this cipher, then I'm going to try variations on very special passphrase or luck and determination. So watch for those kinds of things and use that. I would suggest that you want to stay away from any types of ambiguity, and if the phrase actually is a password, rather than just a key for a cipher, you want to be real clear up front about whether it requires, all lowercase or no spaces or something like that. Just put that in your description up front just to avoid frustrating your solver who really has it right, but they can't make it work.
And then we'll move on to a question from Lefric H. Something I've always wondered about puzzle caches is the process for submitting it to be published. Do you submit it with extra notes for the reviewers so they can solve it to provide or to prove that it's workable? If there's a clue hidden in white font, do you tell the reviewer that, or do you just wait to change it to the color until after the geocache has been posted?
Well, this is going to vary quite a bit by reviewer. I've talked with some other folks in different areas about this, and it sounds like some reviewers really do want to know exactly how the puzzle works. Others really don't seem to care. So keep that in mind and just work with your reviewer. Reviewers are also going to interpret guidelines differently in different areas. So just because you saw a particular puzzle that somebody else got published doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to fly right past your reviewer. You can always try to appeal a reviewer's decision if you need to, but you just keep that in mind that it's really up to your own reviewer what they're comfortable putting out. My own process here is to give kind of just a straightforward summary of the solution process in the reviewer note, just like I give a summary of where the cache is hidden. I really wouldn't try to change the font color post-publication. If you tell your reviewer there's a clue on the cache page, that should be good enough. They're going to be able to find it, I would think. If not, you could certainly explain how. You can have a dialogue back and forth with the reviewer if need be, before it actually publishes. I would add, though, if your puzzle is going to require any kind of download, that you're going to need to put some sort of a disclaimer on there that you promise it, isn't harmful for somebody's computer or whatever. There's good wording for that. I could look up if somebody needs it, but just keep in mind that you'd want to put that disclaimer on there.
Nice. I like that. Now, we have feedback because, we are a live podcast and we have listeners who give us great feedback in the Q&A. This one comes from Lookout Lisa of Cache Advance. She says, we've hosted a few puzzle solving events. These are great to help if you're stuck and even to learn new techniques. So there you go. You'd mentioned events to solve puzzles.
Yep.
So we also have another question. This one's from Billy Robson. He says, is there an easier way to find the cache description in the HTML files? At the moment, I scroll through the HTML code until I find the cache's short description. Then I start searching for hidden text. Is there an easier way to get to that point?
Yes, there definitely is. It depends a little bit on which browser you're using, and again, I'm assuming that you're on a computer rather than on a tablet or whatever. I'm not as familiar with how those work. But if you're in either Firefox or Internet Explorer, you can just hit Control-U, which will take you to the source code. On Chrome, it would be Control-Alt-U. And then once you're in the source code, Control-F will open up a little box where you can just type in this phrase I'm going to give you. It's all one word, usersup, U-S-E-R-S-U-P. Type that in, and it's going to take you right down to the top of the short description, so you don't have to do all that scrolling.
It's like saying, what's up? But it's usersup.
Yep, usersup.
Exactly. That's a great description on how to do it, because getting to the source code can be a little daunting for those who don't know how to do it and have never seen HTML and all the information that can be on an HTML page. So I like that. That's a nice, concise description.
And then the next question comes from Team Pugach. What is the average rating of a puzzle cache? I tend to see them all be 4s or higher. Can there be a 1 or 2 difficulty puzzle cache?
There definitely can. This varies somewhat regionally, and I'd be hard-pressed to say exactly what the average is. The rules or the customs in your area about where to start a puzzle in terms of difficulty rating may even depend on the reviewer in your area and with how they feel about it. In some places, I've heard that people feel that if there's any puzzle at all to do, the difficulty should at least start out around 2 or 2.5. But there are definitely difficulty 1 and 1.5 puzzles out there, and I'm aware of people who actually are able to complete their Fizzy Challenge using only puzzle caches. Child of Adam is one of them. He was the first one I knew to do this, and finding those high terrain and easy puzzles is a pretty tough thing to do. He had to travel a ways to be able to do that. An example of a 1-star puzzle, you'd really have to have an extremely very obvious answer, you know, right in front of the person, or maybe an obvious button that says, like, click here, you know, that reveals the answer. I actually do have a 1.5-star puzzle myself if anybody wants to check it out. The average, again, you know, I don't have a scientific answer for that. I would say certainly in areas where you have a lot of enthusiastic puzzle makers and solvers, thinking, for example, of the San Francisco Bay Area, I'd bet the average is pretty high there because you've got some pretty sharp puzzles and all those computer programmers. It's going to be higher than a lot of other places.
I would think the average would be somewhere like 3.14159.
There you go.
Maybe I'm just hungry for dessert. I don't know. Anyway, more questions, this time from Taz427. What's the best approach to solving puzzles in a foreign language when translation fails you? For example, a cipher, but the deciphered results are going to be in a foreign language that you do not speak, and something as simple as looking up the words for numbers. I've got all but the last one solved for a series of 9 Da Vinci Code-based caches in Sao Paulo, Brazil. I'd love to get it solved before we leave on the trip next month to get the last remaining ape cache. Now, how cool is that?
That's very cool. That is very cool. I have a couple of suggestions for you. The cipher solving program CryptoCrack I was talking about a few minutes ago, it does actually have the option of working in different languages. It'll upload like a dictionary and the statistics or whatever for different languages. So if it were me, I would probably start there and just, you know, hope for the best. You might not get a complete solution, but you might at least get something out of it that you could run through Google Translate, and maybe something, you know, would appear in there. Other things I might suggest would be to put a note on the cache page and see if there's a local puzzler who might be interested in collaborating with you. You'd want to be sure to make it clear that you're looking to collaborate, not, you know, looking for a spoiler. The CO might have a suggestion for you. Some of them are very helpful if they know, like, you are traveling a really long distance and you have a limited amount of time to work with. So good luck, and I hope you can get it figured out.
All right, so our next question comes from Brylang. Faced with a suspected stenography puzzle, how do you determine what encoding method was used so you know what kind of decoding program to use?
This is another one of those things that's pretty tough. Steganography can come in so many different forms. You know, I would start out just looking at the image properties. Chris, you were talking about this last week. There's a shortcut for that. I'll give you a link that you can just paste a URL or upload the photo right into without having to put it into a separate program. Some of your simpler steganography, like a watermark or some manipulation of the pixels, could be figured out through using an image manipulation program like Photoshop or GIMP. Others you might try opening it in Notepad or unzipping it, you know, to see if something has been compressed into the image file. But I think this is what the user was actually asking. The questioner was asking me about is, you know, these programs that are online that can hide or embed your text or your file or whatever it is in there, where it's a specific program. You know, how would you find the specific program? I would say hopefully the cache owner has left you some kind of little nugget there that might point you in the right direction. If not, I'd try some of the more I don't know if they're more common or not. They're the ones I'm familiar with. There's one called S Tools, that's a downloadable, and there's Mobile Fish, that's an online one. I would try those, and just keep in mind, even if you've got the right tool, you're still going to have to figure out what the password is. So that's another thing that hopefully they've left you some clues on. If all else fails, I'd end up writing to the cache owner and tell them what I've tried and see if they'd, toss me a hint.
Exactly. So we get so much feedback for the show. It's amazing. Here's another question from Grey Wolf 5. My question is how to identify images when using reverse image search. When using reverse image search does not work. These images were taken in the 1960s. We have a local cacher who places some fantastic puzzle using images from a 1966 encyclopedia. Do you have any help on how to search the web to identify these images? Help such as what keywords used to be. No, I'm sorry, what keywords to use. I'm putting words in Grey Wolf's mouth.
Well, for those of you who aren't familiar with reverse image searches, there are online tools where you can upload an image or give its URL, and the tool will make a guess at what the image is or point you to a place online where that image is stored, where a copy of that image could be found. Google Images is by far my favorite of these tools. Sometimes if you have a picture that has a whole bunch of images in it, you'll have to isolate a specific portion. You can do that by downloading the image and cropping it a little bit, resaving it, and uploading it, and that works well. Sometimes the results are kind of humorous because they're not what the picture actually is, but it's a guess. If you're not getting any hits at all, which it sounds like is what was happening here in this case, I would try Googling some sort of a description of the picture, what's in it. You're going to have to search through an awful lot of images to try to find anything. You could try adding a strange combination of words or adding in a minus with a word after it to omit particular things that aren't fitting. Google, it is powerful, and there's a lot of things you can find, but it is going to take some work. So I think the only other tip I would give as far as images go is to go the old school route and just show them to some other people. Show them to your friends, show them to relatives. It's interesting that sometimes somebody with a different background from yours or from a different age group of yours will recognize something that you didn't recognize.
All right, next question comes from Photo Pro. When creating a puzzle cache, is it best to make it a single stage or multi-stage puzzle? What is the ideal size for a puzzle container? After laboring over a great puzzle, I would expect a container to be something more than an LPC.
Well, this is another one of these things. I think what's best is going to be in the eye of the beholder here. I enjoy all kinds. There's lots of puzzles that are going to require multiple layers just in the puzzle itself, and those are a lot of fun. I would recommend that if finding the cache itself is going to require multiple waypoints, that you make some mention of that on the cache page and let the person know that their solution is only going to take them to the first waypoint rather than the final. If you don't want to tell them how many waypoints, you could at least total walking required, or tell them that they're going to have to drive to another place to get the final, if that would be required. Certainly as an out-of-town, as somebody who goes out of town a lot to do puzzle caching, I appreciate any kind of information like that, including parking coordinates and that kind of stuff. As far as the container and the location, again, there's a different viewpoints on that as well. My favorites are when either the container or the location has got something to do with the theme of the puzzle. For example, if it's like a pie day puzzle and it takes me somewhere where I could buy a piece of pie, then I wouldn't mind a film can under a lamppost there. I think that thematic touch there makes it fun. You could also have fun containers, a Christmas ornament for a Christmas-themed puzzle or something like that. The size of the container really is going to most likely be dictated by the location where you're hiding it. If you're in the woods, it might be nice to try to hide an ammo can instead of a micro. It's a little more fun to find. But in an urban area, you probably just have to put whatever will fit. regardless of the container or the location, is that if I've done a hard puzzle, I would really appreciate it if the cache itself is not that hard to find, either in terms of the terrain I've got to go through or the style of the hide itself. Not everybody agrees with me on that, and I often end up pushing myself on terrains that I wouldn't even consider if it was a traditional cache, just because I really want to get that puzzle find.
Nice. Now, more from the Q&A. Lookout Lisa adds that you can add the field puzzle attribute.
Yes.
So if there's something more than what you have to solve at your desk, if you get out there, there's an attribute for that.
Right, and that can go for those puzzle box containers as well. That's a newer attribute, though, so I definitely would just remind folks there's some older ones out there where people may not have gone back in and added that particular attribute.
There you go. Now, this question comes from DSV Music. What are some of the effective ways to camouflage and weather or critter-proof physical puzzles in the field, besides putting them in ammo cans or large lock and locks?
This is a question actually that I'm probably not an expert in. You might post it in the geocaching forum and see what people come up with. It certainly is, sad how often caches do get destroyed by either four-legged or two-legged critters. One suggestion I could think of that I've seen before is locking the cache with a padlock, and then you could put the combination for the padlock as part of the puzzle, or it could be, just put on the cache page itself. I've seen puzzles, not just puzzles, but caches chained in place, so that they won't go away. But certainly it's pretty hard to get around somebody who's just really bent on destroying a cache. Just protect it from the elements. I would go with the ammo can myself, just because that's what they're made for, and they seem to be pretty good at keeping things, dry and in good shape.
Well, and I think that probably depends a lot on what region you're in as well.
Mm-hmm.
So your best bet might be talking with some of the local cachers at maybe that puzzle meet and greet that you haven't created yet.
There you go.
So I think that's going to do it for this week's show. We still have more questions, so maybe we'll have to do this one again.
Love it. Love it.
And just to remind people where they can get more information about your blog and all of this great stuff that you've been doing.
That is geocachingpuzzleoftheday.blogspot.com.
Excellent. And we have a whole bunch of great shows scheduled. I've even got shows scheduled into June at this point. So next week, we're doing episode 165, Bicycle Maintenance, with Dano of Team Pugach. So make sure to tune in for that one. He's even got a live prize that he's going to be giving away on that show.
Does that mean a live animal?
No. It's a live toolkit for a bicycle, if I remember.
Okay.
Wait a minute. So does that mean that the toolkit fixes a bike for you if it's alive?
It's a live toolkit, yes.
Interesting. All right, so on March 5th, we're doing episode 166, project-gc.com. We've got the creator of that wonderful tool joining us again to talk more about it. Then our next randomized show is March 12th. Make sure to tune in for Randomize 32. Then on the 19th, we have 168, Attending Mega Events, and this is going to be an international show, so make sure to tune in for that. Get a whole bunch of tips about attending megas, and let us know if you have any questions that you'd like to know about attending a mega event. And then I'm talking about mega events. On the 26th of March, we have the Geo Woodstock 13 committee members on the show to talk more about that wonderful event out in the Washington, D.C. area this year.
Nice. Now, in honor of next week's show, we have a question about bicycles on geocaching.com. So get an email ready to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com and give it the title Question 165. In the body, include your geocaching.com screen name and tell us what the bicycle attribute icon with a red border and diagonal line means on the cache page. That's probably a little too easy, but there's a little more challenging question coming up for the people watching that show live. So make sure you join us at 6:10 p.m. Pacific. That's 9:10 p.m. Eastern for that. In the meantime, you want to get question 165 in an email to geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com by February 25th at 6 p.m. Pacific or 9 p.m. Eastern for a chance at that prize from coinsandpins.com. And thanks again to coinsandpins.com for all those great prizes they give us each and every week.
Check the Cashmaniacs website at cashmaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads at cashmaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cashmaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cashmaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Offenauer and Daryl Wanberg. The show is copyright 2015 by Daryl Wanberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cashmaniacs.